Welcome back. Now, I just want to start this segment with a warning that this will include some content that people might find distressing. It's 10 years to the day since this. That was the start of the Bataclan terror attack, where 90 people were killed, and ISIS fanatics also did this the same evening.
Just now, a bomb exploded. It sounds like it's at the Stade de France. Second explosion at the Stade de France. Run, run, get away. It's an attack.
In total, 130 people were killed in the name of Islamist jihad. Some of the attackers left France and Belgium to go and fight for ISIS in Syria and were then allowed to return. Two others came to Europe posing as refugees. Everyone lit candles. They lay wreaths. I mean, do you remember when everyone changed their profile pictures to the French flag to show solidarity? That evening should have been a wake-up now moment. But what lessons did Britain learn? Well, we allowed more than 400 ISIS fighters to come back to Britain. Today, just this morning actually, there were calls for ISIS bride Shamima Begum, who reportedly helped sew jihadi suicide bombers into their explosive vests, to also be allowed to come back to Britain.
The concern that I have is in this country, we currently have a system whereby you are not stripped of your citizenship for the criminality that you may have committed or alleged to have committed, but you are stripped of your citizenship because of the heritage of your parents and grandparents. So had Shamima Begum's father not been born in Bangladesh, then Shamima Begum would not have been stripped of her citizenship.
We've allowed terrorists to come to Britain across the Channel, posing as refugees. We've had the Manchester Arena attack, where the son of Libyan refugees blew himself up in a room full of children. We've had the London Bridge and Borough Market terror attack, where an Islamist called Quram Butt was one of the attackers. He was part of a Channel 4 documentary called The Jihadi Next Door, during which he unfurled an ISIS flag in Regent's Park. We've also had this.
The tourists who'd come to see the Mother of Parliaments ended up running away from it. Their panic explained by the sound of gunshots.
The Westminster Bridge attack. We've also had the Fishmongers Hall attack, where a jihadi managed to convince authorities that he'd been de-radicalised. He killed 2 young people who worked for a rehabilitation charity. Most recently, of course, we've had the Manchester Synagogue attack. A Syrian, literally called jihad, committed jihad. We've had so many foiled Islamist terror plots in this country that I haven't got the time to sit here and list them all. We've now got armed police at Christmas markets. We've got airport-style security at Christmas markets. We've got the bollards of peace lining the pavements. We've looked across as Islamist attacks have continued to happen on continental Europe, like one of them in Germany.
The chaos in the moments after a lorry ploughed into the crowd at a Christmas market in Berlin. It happened just after 8 p.m, one of the busiest times for the market.
Or, of course, this one in France again.
The moment a truck speeds up and then ploughs through crowds of people gathering for a national celebration in Nice in France.
And again, I ask, what have we allowed to happen here? We let a Muslim mob in Batley call for the death of a secondary school teacher and force him into hiding. The mother of an autistic child had to go to a mosque and apologise to the elders because her son accidentally scuffed a copy of the Quran. We now have police forces saying stuff like this.
Salam alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the leaders and elders that have afforded me this opportunity to speak to you personally.
We have a record number of Islamists on terror watch lists, and as far as I can tell, in Britain, 10 years on from the Bataclan and Paris attack, we have spent more time focusing on claims of Islamophobia than confronting actual Islamist terrorism. Let's get the thoughts of my panel. We, of course, have the Telegraph's Poppy Coburn, Tory peer Lord Bailey, and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. Sean, I'll start with you. 10 years on, we've learnt nothing. In fact, it's got worse, hasn't it?
I think the thing I've always said, I've said a number of times in this show, I'm a little bit worried about the idea that we can re-educate people. You're talking about someone who's at the very least prepared to commit a criminal act, and in many cases a murderous criminal act, and we think a couple of weeks with some right-on psychologist and you're going to give away, you're going to change your worldview. I've always been sceptical of that. The London Bridge attacks show me that my scepticism is placed in the right place. But the real worry for me is we have had lots and lots of uncontrolled immigration. I would be stunned if that doesn't generate some kind of problem in this area. I know that our security services have been very, very good at foiling plots, but they only need to get lucky once. We need to get lucky every single day.
Probably the lunacy of that Bataclan attack there, where it was committed by a combination of returning ISIS fighters and also fake refugees.
Yeah. ISIS fighters who, by the way, were bragging that they could travel anywhere around Europe and that they couldn't be stopped. I mean, I think, well, if after this appalling terror attack, right, you think all of society would come out and say this is horrific. I mean, you cannot think of anything more inhuman. They tried to do a minute's silence across all French schools in the immediate aftermath of the Bataclan attack. 150 schools refused to do the silence. The pupils refused to engage in the silence. That is what we're talking about when we say there's an integration problem, an extremism problem that's around Europe right now. And what has changed in the 10 years is, OK, you don't have the Islamic State problem where it's organised terror attacks. You have this ambient jihadism. You have these people who could be radicalised and trained how to make a bomb, just to drive a car into a crowd, you know, or you know, to blow yourself up online. And there's very little way for authorities to actually stop those
that's
people.
The scary part.
So there's a lot of people out there in the UK who could, at any moment, just...
And that's quite literally, and that is one of the big issues as far as I'm concerned, Matthew, which is that, you know, despite all of those warnings 10 years ago, despite what happened, I mean, that was only, I think, I'm right in saying, a few months after the actual Charlie Hebdo attack as well.
Yeah, shortly after.
We've actually allowed the problem to carry on, get worse, and the British public, us, you, me, all of our viewers and listeners, are just going to have to sit back and wait for the next one, aren't we?
Well, I hope not, but I mean, I think they're clearly, I mean, I agree with what Poppy's just said. There clearly remains an integration problem, not only in France, but in the UK as well. And I think it's important that we realistically look at where these attacks have come from, and that resources are focused, you know, on that. We cannot be, whether it's about terrorism, or I think you're going to come on and discuss in the Sharif case, you know, nothing must, exactly, no fear of being called Islamophobic or racist can stop the right questions being asked, the right people being watched.
I think the problem we've had recently that we've emboldened these people. There's people in this country who are in Parliament who are calling for certain groups to be, you know, put back on the register because we prescribed them, and they say no, they shouldn't be prescribed. Why that's important and what's happened in the marches, and they've gone unchallenged. We have emboldened these people to behave the way they want to behave. They've turned up at MPs' houses and burnt down MPs' offices. All of that is an indication that they feel like they can do as they please. That could manifest itself as a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you said this in your monologue, Patrick. You know, there's still a teacher that's in hiding because he tried to show an image of the Prophet Muhammad at a grammar school, and people are still too frightened to get involved. There was an MP for Golders Green that felt that it was too unsafe for him to remain in his seat because he was getting so many threats. And what concerns me is that the bodies that we have, like Prevent, to deal with these, are just not fit for purpose, right? I do not believe that they are focusing in the right areas, which is Islamic terrorism, which has made up the vast majority of actual terror attacks that have happened in the UK. I think a lot of these organisations are pretty captured because, again, we're too polite in this country, and we think it makes it seem like we're bigoted in some way. I am really, really worried that we're going to have another terror attack in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those you always remember where you were moments when the Bataclan, was like, a bit like 9/11 and some of the 7/7, etc. But, you know, for me, anyway, I woke up this morning, I saw that it was the anniversary of it, and I just thought, we've not done anything about it, have we? I just feel like we're sitting ducks waiting for the next one, and you know, people have to take account for that, I think. But anyway...